morning, everybody. Sorry I'm not mic'd up, so I'm going to be a little loud. It's fine. I've had to project before. Thank you for being in the room. We are really excited about this. We have some phenomenal people here. I'm going to start with Alisdair, and I assume that Alisdair is going to introduce the rest.
I'm actually going to let everyone introduce themselves.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, no.
So I get to introduce Alisdair. Alisdair and I have known each other for quite a while. Alisdair is the president of the Marine Marketers Association and does a great job providing education on the marketing side to people within the marine space. And you've got some just unbelievable marketeers, and one is a secret beekeeper. Which one? Which one?
Oh.
That will be the task. Which one is the secret beekeeper on the panel? All right, I'm getting
I think Gordon just gave that away.
Yeah.
Okay. So this session is What's the Story? Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking about building brand DNA to expand your customer base. Congratulations on picking the right room today. Well played, all of you. We have three great speakers. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves because they know themselves better than I do. Thomas, take us away.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Bates. I work for Correct Craft. I've been at the company for 21 years, and I serve in the role as Chief Revenue Officer. Spent most of my career coming up through sales and marketing.
I'm Gordon Sprouse. I'm the Director of Marketing for Raymarine and FLIR Marine. I've been with the company for 18 months. Prior to that, I worked in the marine industry for 19 years with a previous marine electronics company. And before that, I was in the publishing industry for about 15 years. And I'm a beekeeper.
Gave it away. Yeah. Hi, I'm Amber Holm. I'm the Chief Marketing and Experience Officer at Winnebago Industries. I've been with Winnebago for about 3 years. Prior to that, I spent my career at General Mills on brands like Cheerios and Pillsbury Dough, and then I was at Bridgestone, where I had Bridgestone and Firestone tires, Newell Brands, where I had Rubbermaid and Housewares brands, so really run the gamut of industries, but all great consumer brands where brand building and general management were my focus. So glad to be here, and our marine brands are Chris Craft, Barletta, and then we have Lithionics, which is our power solutions business, so glad to get to represent those teams here at IBEX.
Terrific. So as you've seen, these are quick sessions, so we're going to be moving pretty fast. I would love to leave time at the end for questions. So my ask for you lot is to have questions ready if we have time at the end as we go through. But let's kick things off. 35 minutes, so I'm going to dive straight in. Thomas, set the table for us when we talk about storytelling and marketing, building brand DNA. Practically, what does that mean for a marine brand?
Yeah, oftentimes when people begin to market, they say, this is the product or service that I offer, what's really cool about it, and now let me talk about it. But I believe you need to step back when you build a brand and really think through who you are. You always start with your purpose. Purpose should be the arbiter of all your decision making, and it's extremely important. The next thing is, what's your vision? Where are you going? What are you trying to accomplish? And then what are your values? Your values drive your organization, but it also drives your brand. And then finally, you must define your personality. When I talk about somebody, when you begin to define somebody with words, what are those words that are critical to your brand, and how do you define your personality? And then you take the bulk of that and you use that information to tell really, really good stories and be effective with your storytelling.
Gordon, I'm interested in your perspective on this because, as you said in your intro, you were with one mainstream industry brand for 20 years and then started fresh with Raymarine. New product, new team, new messaging, new everything. Where do you start? It must be overwhelming. Where do you actually start?
Well, when I was hired in the marine industry, from the publishing industry in 2004, there was a pioneer in our industry, Daryl Lawrence, who hired me, and he always talked about it's never about any one thing. It's everything all together, and that sounds great from a theory standpoint. But you have to hold on to something to build a brand. And I often think about the movie City Slickers. You saw City Slickers, right? Remember when Curly said, the secret to life is one thing, right? And Billy Crystal said, your finger? No, it wasn't your finger. He said, the secret to life is one thing. You've just got to figure out what that is. And for me, that's the customer telling the story. For me to build a brand, It's the customer telling the story. And I know from surveys that the number one selling message is a friend's recommendation. So for me, the one thing on building a brand, and this is very basic, is sales leads. If I have a marketer that comes into me and talks about all the things that they want to do to build a brand and they leave out sales leads, it's a little bit of a miss for me. So yes, all of the things are very important, but if we do a great product introduction, if we do a great PR, if we do great content, and we miss the idea of collecting the leads, of collecting the sales information on that customer for the long term, without integrating the idea of collecting that customer sales information to build that brand, to build the long-term connection with that customer for long term, by collecting the customer information with that lead for our sales team, we missed the opportunity. And that's an important part, not only externally for our brand, but it's extremely important internally for the sales team, because it gives us leverage to not only support the sales team, but also to hold their feet to the fire a little bit, to be a little bit saying, this is what I'm doing for you, but this is also what I'm expecting of you. So for me, that's the one thing that I hold to build a brand.
Amber, I love that you're with us because you have a really interesting perspective as well. In so much as CMO Winnebago, you have multiple products in multiple sectors, multiple brands. Start with fundamentals for us. What parts of your strategy, your formula, are uniform across all brands?
Yeah. And I think, as I mentioned, I've worked across categories, and I think really you want to start with who is your customer, who is your consumer, and what do they value? I think sometimes, especially as I've come into RVs and boats, we're like, oh, I'm going to launch a product because I need one at this price point, and I got to build a bill of materials that hits this price point. And that's absolutely true. We know affordability is an issue in our industry right now. But if you're not starting with who is my consumer and what do they care about, you're ultimately not going to win for the long term in the market. So I think it's important to look at, what data do you have? So we've all got data on who are our owners now, and what prospects do we have coming in? So understanding that analytics side of who the customer is, but then also understanding more qualitatively and psychographically, what does that customer care about? How can I deliver features and benefits that excite and delight them? When you talk about the best marketing is word of mouth, when you're going to you love a product so much that you want to tell somebody about it. But that only comes if that product is delivering on what you really care about and what you want and need. And so I think, that's kind of some basic foundational principles. But again, I don't know, because I think the boating industry hasn't always prioritized marketing. It's sort of been like, hey, marketing's over here, they're a cost center, make a website, take pictures of the new boat, do a product launch.
So true.
And those things are all important, but I think marketing is also responsible for thinking holistically about who our buyer is and how are we positioning our brand and our products to meet their needs. So that's what we've focused on. And at Winnebago Industries, we have a consumer insights team centrally that works with each of our brands so that we can really deeply understand who our customers are. And we believe that's going to be foundational to helping us drive accelerated growth in the future.
Let's dig a little more into one of those brands. So Barletta Boats is relatively new, right? It's 7-8 years old, but massive, massive growth. Unpack that a little bit for us. What's the secret sauce there? What have you done?
Yeah, well, and Jeff Teledyne, who actually runs Barletta, is in the room, so I'm sure if you have deep questions, you can ask him afterwards as well.
Bring him up.
But I think Barletta really did understand what the customer wanted. So if you think about what a pontoon historically was, it was a value, it was a rough ride, it was fun because you could bring a lot of people on it, but you were trading off, for the fun and versatility of a pontoon, you were trading off that fit and finish and furniture and styling. That was really something that you wanted to be seen in and be proud of. And so I think Barletta's really redefined what a pontoon is, and that's led to them, having extremely strong growth. Dealers being excited to sell it because it's offering something that consumers really couldn't get in the pontoon segment before. And so I think, again, that's sort of understanding that insight that people wanted the versatility and all the things you can do with a pontoon, but they didn't, want the way a pontoon looked and felt. And so Barletta's done a great job at really raising the bar on what a pontoon is. And I think that's been foundational to leading to their growth.
Beautiful boat.
Are there any specific quick fire takeaways that you would give people who are in the same position, not necessarily with the same product, but any quick fire, like we did this and it was really successful?
Yeah, well, I think the other piece of marketing, and again, like if you look at what the marine industry spends as a % of revenue on marketing relative to other industries, it's tiny. I mean, certainly you have to look at the margin profile, and nobody's going to go from spending not much on marketing to, especially in the down market we're in right now, to spending a ton. But I do think as we want to grow boating and grow the industry altogether, we have to tell people about our products, and we have to make them choose boating versus other leisure activities that they could do. So, I was mentioning how great the Barletta product is. One campaign that they did was partnering with Sig Hansen, who's the deadliest catch on the Discovery Channel. Mm-hmm. They actually took him out on a Barletta and showed his experience in big water. And again, that's redefining what a pontoon is. You wouldn't think that you could have a coastal edition. Pontoons are historically just lake boats. So I think that's a way to, again, understand the consumer insight, redefine how you're talking about it, but also use somebody that has a following, and that's going to help you draw more people in. Influencer marketing is a big thing today, and that's one way that you can look at, are there some cost-effective ways to kind of get the word out there, even if you don't have a large marketing budget. So I think it's important, again, starting with who the customer is, that leads to the right product and brand connection, but then also thinking strategically about how you want to, when you think about your annual plan for the year, how many people do you think you can reach, and how do you want to talk about your brand? And so we've put a focus on that as well at Winnebago.
Thomas, you have interesting challenges here because Correct Craft have acquired some brands, right? So you have the balance of sort of honoring legacy versus also creating new growth. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, we've acquired a lot of wonderful brands that have a tremendous amount of legacy. Many of the companies have 50 plus years of history. When you acquire great brands that have a history, you want to always honor that legacy. I think building on legacy, being a good steward of what someone else has built is so critically important. And so when we first go in, we try to identify what are those values that made that brand great and what it is, and try to list those out. But so many times people get captured by the past and they don't focus on the future. Now, what's going to help that brand move into the future? And so you honor the past and you engage in a story and a message into the future, and can try to carry that message forward as you work through legacy. And it's tremendous to see product change over time, but stay anchored in who the brand is and what it is, and never give it up. You see so many times in our industry when a great brand goes awry, people are just depart from what made that brand great. But people also need to realize, wow, this is fresh and this is new. I'll kind of use Basscat a little bit of an example. A tremendous brand, tremendous history, known for high performance products. We always wanted to anchor in premium and performance in that space, but we've been moving into a new era with Basscat and building some products that are much more, have layouts that are much more advantageous to the current bass fishermen, and doing some really interesting things around marketing and how do we bring in influencers and how do we speak into the environment a little bit differently, doing some interesting stuff there. So it's neat to see and be able to talk about the past, but never get captured by it, and tell a great story about the future of the brand based on the values that have made it so great.
Awesome. Gordon, you have one of my favorite campaigns of the year. I feel like it's really hard, especially in boating, to keep coming up with creative new ways to tell our story, but you have achieved exactly that with your Strikes campaign. Tell us about that one.
Well, as I said, I love, if you haven't noticed, I love sales leads. Yes, so I like those, but I also love to tell great stories. And I've told a lot of stories, but this, when at Raymarine, we had a lot of focus on saltwater fishing. But we didn't want to tell the same saltwater fishing. And when we told the saltwater fishing story, obviously we wanted to have some stopping power. So we decided we were tired of the beautiful blue skies and catch a big fish story. Because we decided behind every grip and grin glory shot, there lies tragedy. and only a fisherman knows what that is. And because a fisherman knows you're going to have batteries that run down, you're going to run out of gasoline sometime, your boat's going to break, your rods are going to break, things are going to go wrong. But when things go wrong, Raymarine's going to have your stern. We're going to be there to help you out. So we launched an Earn Your Strikes campaign, and our 1-minute launch video that came out videotaped all the things that can go wrong. Sailfish running across the back of your boat, rods breaking, everything that could go wrong, but the fish are still out there waiting for you, and we'll have your stern, and that's how it ends. And that's how we launched the Earn Your Strikes campaign, and we've added on to that with sweepstakes and promotions and that. And it's worked incredibly well in partnering with our performance marketing agency, Digital Throttle. We've actually spent less on our performance marketing campaign. We spent about 20% less on the paid performance marketing, but we've actually increased our website traffic, and we've actually added, we're up like 42% on new users to our website and to the sales leads that we've generated to our campaign, or to our sales lead list. So it's worked incredibly well. And we have some great partners. We're going to add new content to it. And so we're looking forward to adding to that campaign going forward. So it's worked extremely well. It's kind of taking a campaign, turning it upside down, and gathering new audience members to our list. Worked well.
I think it's great. I mean, I think we do have a tendency in marine to be a little over-aspirational sometimes in our marketing and tell the same story over and over again. And it leads me on to my next question, which is a broader question that I want to put to all of you. So we know that we have some challenges in the industry, right? We have an aging demographic of boaters. We have some challenges with sort of early attrition in boating. If we want to grow our base of customers, then we need to find the next generation of boaters. So I'm interested to know what you're each doing individually with your brands to reach that next generation of buyers. Let's start with Thomas.
Yeah, I believe it's so important to introduce boating to the next generation. Oftentimes we know people who are introduced at a very young age to boating are likely to buy a boat. And we know that's important. So providing content that both is down the funnel, showing what your product does and leading to that sales lead is super important, but you have to pay attention to the aspirational side. And I'll give one example. Basscat's such a good example as it's a brand we're working hard to, again, anchor in the values, but transform into the future. And we've done some interesting partnerships around influencers. Instead of just going out after your traditional anglers, we've partnered with Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter. Recently, we just launched the Jaguar partnership and doing some interesting things around football and fishing and the passion that comes along with it. And the amount of interest, we actually launched a product at the Bassmaster Classic. Travis Hunter actually did the walkthrough for us. And so just bring a very fresh perspective and a youthful perspective that, hey, I play football or whatever I do, but I also love to fish. And it's so much more authentic. It doesn't come across as somebody trying to just sell you something because they're paid to, because they live this lifestyle. We did a video recently as we test content in this environment, not just through an influencer environment, but also through what product does people want to watch and become aspirational. We just had a recent post for Basscat of just an era running down the lake, sitting on the back pad at 80 miles an hour, just cruising down the water. It's north of 21 million views today. And we have not only 21 million views, we have over 150,000 shares. When you look at the impressions that we're getting off of that, it's tremendous. And we're seeing it translate down the funnel as we're seeing our sales leads increase by over 25%. Our order backlog is increased by 8 weeks. And not specific just to that, but what we're doing is driving down the funnel, creating interest, and eventually leading to sales. And so I think you got to test your content in the new environment, but bring in the new audience. Let them engage, let them share their passion. And I think that's really, really important.
We talked about this question last week, and I thought about this question for a long time.
I'm glad.
And I have to tell you, I'm guilty as hell on this one. Because for a long time, I've been in the electronics industry, and my attitude has always been, not my monkeys, not my zoo. in terms of new people coming. I'm responsible for selling $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 electronics packages. And that's not the new person coming in. My job is to not let them go. That's my responsibilities. And there's a lot of situations, I feel, like you have mentioned, where we have too many people coming into the industry and not staying.
Let's answer that question then. Early retention instead. We know that a frighteningly high percentage of people leave.
And when it comes to marine electronics, how many times do people come in and they're watching and they come into the boat and then they'll come back for 3 or 4 months? And what am I looking at? They don't know how to figure out how to turn on. Some people don't know how to turn on their TV, or find something on their TV, and much less their marine electronics. So we have tried to over-educate people on how to use their marine electronics and make that education available. So we have tried to make education on marine electronics easier and accessible for people to be able to make that happen and make that accessible for them. But I will make a pledge. Glenn Hausman is an extremely good friend, and I will reach out to him for ways that we can be able to make that happen. But I will say that my commitment would be more on the side of helping on the area of retention rather than reaching out, because I think there are great organizations out there for the gathering those people, and I think we should be focused more on the area of retention.
Mix 2026, we're going to come back and give you a grade on...
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Amber, next generation, how do we get them?
Well, I would argue, and I'd say we all have to say it is my monkey and it is my zoo.
I agree.
I think we're all collectively responsible for can we keep the boating industry going. I mean, I'll put a plug. Thomas and I have been working with Discover Boating and with the NNMA and what we want the next evolution of Discover Boating to be. And I think that has tremendous potential for us all as we think about bringing new people in, starting to educate them. Historically, I don't know if we've always done a great job collectively is like, where do we take leads from that and how do we hand them off to OEMs and dealers? So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us collectively. So I think you'll be hearing more about that as we continue to evolve Discover Boating. I mean, we also, yes, like we sell Chris Crafts that are, not cheap, and same with Newmar RVs that are at the high end. So you're not going to probably get a new customer that's going to come in at the absolute high end of the market. But I think for us at Winnebago, as we think collectively about our portfolio, we do want to have products that aren't so out of reach that people can actually come in on those. Like, Newmar, for instance, they make really high-end RVs. The King Air is 1.6 or 7 million. That's the highest end. And those are 40-foot Class A RVs. So there's a very specific buyer for that who might be who you think of as a historical RV buyer. They're launching a Freedom Air, which is 25 feet, much smaller, still a high-end price point, but a lot more affordable than what the top of the line would be. But it's more maneuverable. It's easier to take places. You can go to more national parks. You can park a lot easier, and so that fits both in taking people that might have been the customer for the big Class A and giving them an option that they can, as they age, that they can get into, but it also invites younger families and people that aren't ready for, a big giant RV. So I think product and price point is one key thing that we have to think about. And then I think, and that's an RV example, but boating is similar as well. But I also think that just education and inspiration is really important, because if you didn't, we know one of the number one determinants of whether you're going to boat is if you grew up boating. So my husband is a super big bass fisherman. I might have to talk to you about a bass boat later. But,
Let's talk. I need an RV.
So he's like, my boys are really into bass fishing because he was, but we have to figure out a way for people that didn't have that growing up, that we're still inviting them in. And so I love the example of how do you get influencers and people that aren't the traditional boaters or the traditional, RVers in my case, to kind of demystify a little bit. And so I think that's important as we work with our dealer partners as well. And that's something that I think we try to do across Winnebago Industries, because to even get somebody to come into a dealer, they have to be online, engaging with your brand, engaging with the category. And so, and social media is one of the top ways that people shop, both for boats and RVs. So thinking holistically about your social media strategy and what kind of content that you want there is something we put a lot of focus on at Winnebago as well, because we know that that's a critical way to at least start to get people engaged. We're fortunate to work in an industry where people dream about these products. And so if you can introduce them and show them the benefits of it, I think that's where you can kind of get in the consideration set. I used to sell tires. I mean, that's a grudge purchase, right? Like, you're like, what? You know, but even in tires, we had an insight that people in Firestone, which is another historic brand that we had to grow, like there was an insight that, you know, those big like mud tires that people want to put on their Jeep or their truck, frankly, only a very small percentage of people actually off-road with those tires. The insight is that they just really like the look and the aspirational appeal of those. And so, you know, we were able to demonstrate, we did a whole campaign around truck stuff and kind of tongue-in-cheek, all the fun things you could do with your truck. And so we were able to get a lot of those more aspirational people that just wanted to like outfit their truck, even though we knew they weren't going to go off-road at all. So if I can make tires sexy, we can definitely make boating sexy, right? I mean, I think we sell a great benefit. But I think it's incumbent upon all of us to think about how do we do education and kind of make it simpler for people to at least be welcomed in. Because it can be a very cliquey, you know, if you're not in the boating community, then you don't feel like it's for you. And so I think, you know, Winnebago, as we look at different audiences and partnerships that we do across all of our brands, we want to try to make sure people feel like they can see themselves in the category.
I have to say, there's nothing better than walking out into your garage the day after you put a new set of tires on your truck and you smell them. That's the best.
The customer satisfaction with new tires for all brands is super high because if you ask them 30 days after they bought new tires, they had bald tires before. So no matter what brand, they're like, I love it.
You smell them.
You have to ask them again. You have to ask them again like a year in.
Yeah.
I am very surprised that you did not include making tires sexy in your introduction today.
I'm about to say, I mean,
Pretty- yeah,
what you
pretty
learned
key.
today? If you can make tires sexy, you can definitely make it.
We have 4 minutes, so quick questions from the audience. Be respectful, let everyone else have a chance. If you have a question, ask it. Let's go.
I own a couple of marinas in Australia. I think it always puzzles me that boat brands don't build incredible relationships with marinas. We're providing the berths, fuel boats. We don't keep expanding our marinas and investing out in our marinas. We've got nowhere to put the boats. So we also have to work with retention, retaining our clients as well. So my question is, would you be open as brands to conducting events at marinas specifically for our clients? And we have 250 berths, so 250 clients doing that. Raymarine would be a good example, coming in and giving a really good lesson on how to use the actual capability of their Raymarine rather than the technical probably of what they're using. Is that something you, as brands, would be open to, building greater relationships with marine owners?
Absolutely. Can we get a hold of your database?
That's a really
Oh, let's see.
thanks for asking the question.
We can put links to our newsletters.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can, there's always a.
It's more a case of your brands coming in and potentially, you know,
Yes.
sponsoring an event at
Yes.
the arena
Yes,
to actually get some traction with our clients, which is a win-win for both of
Yeah.
us, right?
absolutely. We can talk to our EMEA director, APAC directors, all the same, look at that opportunities.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, and I don't want to, I keep harping on, but you know, boating, like first-time boaters are lower, and we know that the category's been declining. So I do think we should think differently. And also, how do we leverage the ecosystem? So how do we work with our marina partners, with our dealer partners, with OEMs, you know, maybe with other partners we haven't even thought about yet. But I think it kind of takes a village from that perspective, because if we do the same thing, we're not going to get a different result moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea.
Good answer.
What was the question? What was the question?
About partnering with marinas. Can boat brands partner with marinas? And I think broadly, like the answer is that yes, we should absolutely be looking at these kind of co-op relationships now if we want to, you know, harness those to grow the next generation of boaters. Okay, I think we're at time. All right. One more question. Make it a golden one, Stephen.
So I produced a TV show about boating lifestyle, and a problem that I came up to pretty quickly was how regional boating is. So people are interested all over the place, but Pacific Northwest and the Florida Keys, they both love fishing, they both love their boating culture, but how they interact with water is very different. So companies that are like Marletta all over the place, what's the balance between your national, international brand messaging versus the regional messaging? Because you can't have all of one or the other because you want consistency, but how do you navigate that?
You're me. Yeah. You go first now.
I mean, I think the great thing about digital marketing is that you can be very targeted, and we have to be able to produce content more efficiently and effectively. So if you want to talk about saltwater boats and coastal editions and things in the areas that's where that is big, you need a slightly different message than what you have at a lake. So I think you do want to be consistent in what your brand stands for and who your brand is, but I think that's where having a content pipeline where you can have some regional differences. And I think that's a good way to work with specific dealers as well. So we definitely think about that across our brands. Again, it all has to be within what your brand kind of positioning is about. But I think digital allows us to be more targeted than ever before. I mean, you can get to micro targeting and personalization. I think that's where things are going, especially with AI, and AI can let you produce content more effectively as well. But I think we think about it in terms of just using digital in that regard, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. Content's way more expensive than people realize to generate and create. It's so funny. People say, "Oh, wow, it's free to put online." Yes, now go shoot it and good luck trying to get good content. We have engaged a lot more of our consumers in saying, how do you boat, where you boat, and do you mind sharing that content with us? And then we've been able to take some of that content from our customers, which tells a very authentic story, but then it also enlightens people to, oh, how do you boat in the Pacific Northwest versus how do you boat in the Keys?
Right.
They're very different environments and the type of fishing you do. And then finding local influencers who fish in those markets and then partnering with them and saying, hey, take a Parker out for a day and enjoy this, give us your thoughts. That gives them brand exposure and gives us brand exposure. So instead of trying to look at this at like, this is a massive content, expense to go shoot in 8 locations. Like, okay, how do we shoot in 2 locations, get as much as we can, but then partner with influencers and others to help us create the environment to which our boats are going to operate in effectively.
That's good.
All right.
Does that incentivize them to share that content?
Sometimes they just love it, and they, it depends on your brand power. Sometimes they're like, yeah, your brand will help me build my brand, and so yeah, let's partner together. So you get some of that. And other times we just say, hey, I've got to use a boat to fish in. I need a boat, so let's work together on what you need and what we need, and that becomes a much more cost-effective way to do it.
I could listen to these 3 talk for another hour quite happily, but I think we are at time. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I hope you found something valuable in this session. Please join me in a quick round of applause for our speakers, Thomas, Gordon, and Amber. Thank you so much.